couple of years ago, I started building Mrs. Tinkerer and myself this giant bed. The project kind of stalled and sat in my shop for a while, and I just recently finished it and brought it in the house. There's only one problem with this bed. Because it has drawers underneath it, you can't use a traditional nightstand, otherwise the drawer closest to the headboard would hit it. So to solve this issue, I've decided to build some floating nightstands. Let's get started. We're going to use a variety of different woods for this project. First, I'm ripping down some pieces out of some birch cabinet grade plywood. Now I've set up a stop at the miter saw, and I'm cutting all my pieces to length. These triangular pieces will help keep the box square, plus they'll give us something to screw the top down to. These thin pieces will frame out the drawer opening. Now it's time for a little bit of assembly. It looks like this birch plywood has tire tracks on it. That's because it does. A friend of mine fished this out of a dumpster and gave it to me. I'll take free plywood any day. Now here's these corner blocks I was telling you about. Since these are a 90-degree angle, when I put them in and flush them up, that means the box is square. Here I'm gluing on the face frame that will go on top of the drawer. Now flipping it over, we'll put on the face frame for the bottom of the drawer. Now we're adding some smaller corner blocks on the bottom of the box. The back edge of the nightstand box that attaches to the wall needs to be longer than it is. So I'm using some pocket screws and some glue to add this extension to it. You're probably saying to yourself, Tink, why didn't you just make this long to begin with? My answer to you is, I didn't think about it. Mind your own business. To reinforce this joint and to build it up to make it thicker, I'm just putting some strips of birch plywood scrap on there. Here we're adding a shelf at the bottom of the nightstand. To make the shelf thicker, we're going to add another layer of birch plywood on top of it. And to make the shelf nice and sturdy, we're going to add some screws to the bottom of it. We need a little extra support for the shelf, so with another piece of birch plywood, I'm cutting an L-shaped bracket. I'm finishing up the cut with the handsaw. We're going to glue and nail this on the side of the shelf. This serves a double purpose. It adds strength, but it also covers up the edge of the plywood so you don't see it. The clamp is pulling everything square. It's time to work on the drawers. and the first step is to put the drawer slides in the nightstand. I'm actually cheating a little bit on these drawers. I had a couple of pre-made drawer boxes that were the right size, so I'm using those instead of building them from scratch. All the edges of the plywood need to be covered so that you don't see them. On the front of the shelf, I'm going to use a thin strip of wood. I'm just going to glue and brad nail it on. In this shot, you can see a blue electrical box above the shelf. I'll show you what that's for in a minute. In other places, I'm using this adhesive birch edge banding. The glue on the back of the banding is activated by a hot iron. Now we just trim off the excess that overhangs. And for trimming the sides, I have a special edge trimming tool. For the top of the nightstand, I'm using some 5/4 thick oak. I glued this up earlier, and now I'm trimming it to size on the table saw. Here I'm ripping a piece for the drawer fronts, also out of 5/4 thick oak. Now I'm cutting it to length, and I'm using a round over bit to ease the edges on all 4 sides. And I'll also use a round over bit to ease the edges on the top of the nightstand as well. Wow, I apologize for wearing this red shirt. My dandruff has really gotten out of control lately. I'm temporarily lining up and clamping the drawer front on the drawer box. Now I can flip it over and shoot a few brads through the inside of the drawer into the drawer front. I'm going to be using my spring-loaded nail set to set all the nails. Unlike a standard nail set that you hit with a hammer and sometimes can glance off the nail and make a big hole in your work, this one's all in one, offering more control. You just put the nail set on the nail head, holding the bottom part, and pull up on the top part, letting it go. The force of it slamming together drives the nail. This works on Newton's 16th law of sharp, pointy things driving nails and hitting. Anyway, it works great, and I would highly recommend getting a pair of these. I'm filling all the holes with lightweight spackle. Now we're going to attach the top. First, I clamp it in place. Now with some screws going through the corner blocks we installed, we'll screw into the bottom side of the top. For paint, we're going to use the same white paint that I painted the bed with. This is a semi-gloss acrylic latex paint, and it's going to end up taking 3 coats, mainly just to cover the oak grain texture. Well, here we have one of the finished floating nightstands. You can see that it hangs high enough on the wall that the drawer in the bed can open underneath it. And here we have the plug with the built-in USB ports. Mrs. Tinkerer's side of the bed was pretty easy to do. My side, however, was a lot more difficult. I had a window in the way, but I was able to get around it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and hope this inspires you to go out and build yourself a floating nightstand. Well, until next time, thanks for watching.